Werewolves only respond to the howl of their own kind. Harry's father, Potter, was a seeker too. Ron inherited his dress robes from his great-aunt Tessie. Hermione erased her parents' memories. Today, we're going to see how the Harry Potter movies made you misunderstand a lot of things in the story. Hey there, wizards. How's it going? We know that adaptations make certain changes, right? Some things need to work on screen, and simply put, just like in the book, it's not possible to do. But that doesn't mean that some of these choices don't directly interfere with the story and make the audience misunderstand some things. But that's okay, don't worry, because today I'm going to make you truly understand everything the movies made you misunderstand. No, the claim that a werewolf only responds to the howl of its own kind is an invention of the movie. In the book, that doesn't exist, and it's only added so that Hermione can imitate a werewolf's howl, and Lupin follows her at that moment, showing that she had already gone back in time, and that's why Lupin, in his wolf form, simply left because he heard someone howling. And since Lupin is a werewolf, that is, a man who turns into a wolf, he's of the human species, right? He's a Homo sapiens. So they put that in the movie just to make this mechanism work, but it's not a fact. Phoenix tears can heal anything. Look, in the history of this channel, I've received the question why countless times.
Why didn't Dumbledore use Fawkes's tears to heal his hand when he put on the ring? Or why didn't they use Fawkes to heal anything, to cure all the diseases in the world?
Phoenix tears do have healing powers, but not for everything. They're not a universal remedy that will cure anything and everything. Some things just can't be healed. So, Dumbledore simply couldn't use the Phoenix to heal that curse on his hand because there was no way.
Even though Phoenix tears have a very great, very strong power, after all, basilisk venom is something extremely powerful.
And Phoenix tears can heal that. They can break its effect, but it's not everything they can do, but they can. Is it possible to learn Parseltongue? Because if Ron heard Harry speaking in his sleep and managed to open the Chamber of Secrets, then it's possible to learn it easily, right? Isn't it possible to learn? Parseltongue is a hereditary condition. Harry is the only one who has Parseltongue without inheriting it from his ancestors, because he had part of Voldemort's soul living inside him, so that made him a Parselmouth. It wasn't really him being a Parselmouth, right? So much so that when the part of Voldemort's soul in his body was destroyed, he lost that gift. So, how does Ron use Parseltongue to enter the Chamber of Secrets? He doesn't hear Harry sleeping and learn to speak it. He didn't become a Parselmouth. If he used what he said to try to talk to a snake, he wouldn't be able to hear a snake talking to him.
What he did was repeat a word, and it wasn't even that he heard Harry sleeping.
He repeats the word that Harry uses to open the locket, and he tries countless times to repeat it exactly as he says it. After many tries, he finally opens the Chamber of Secrets, gets the basilisk venom and fang, and destroys the Horcrux. But that doesn't mean he became a Parselmouth, since it's impossible to learn. A person can learn to understand Parseltongue. They can learn to say a few words, but they won't be a Parselmouth, because a Parselmouth is someone who speaks with snakes. And that's only passed down from father to son. It's possible to apparate in Hogwarts. Dumbledore. Being who I am, I have my privileges. No. It's not possible to apparate in Hogwarts, unless the protections for that are removed. Dumbledore doesn't have privileges just because he's headmaster. So much so that to return to the castle, after the cave there in the book, when they're coming back, right? They come back by broomstick, Dumbledore and Harry, and Dumbledore undoes the spells so they can enter Hogwarts. So, being headmaster didn't let him apparate, right? And especially, Draco shows himself apparating, right? Also there, in the Battle of Hogwarts, in the dungeons, apparating with Blasio and Goyle. To get to the room, you need to go after Harry. You can't apparate. No. Quirrell was possessed by Voldemort from the very first moment Harry met him, back in Diagon Alley, when Quirrell avoids shaking his hand, right? That's also wrong actually in the book. Harry shakes Quirrell's hand in Diagon Alley.
Voldemort only starts to possess Quirrell's body after he tries to steal the Philosopher's Stone at Gringotts, but ends up failing. So he ends up possessing his body there to stay closer to Quirrell, and also to punish Quirrell in some way.
Besides that, He also uses Quirrell's body as a host, a temporary Horcrux, so that he can drink unicorn blood and get stronger. But at that moment, he still wasn't in his own body. This one is already classic, it's already been discussed. I've talked about it several times here on the channel. Is it possible to defend yourself against the Avada Kedavra spell? The movies do this all the time. People defending themselves from Avada Kedavra with magic. That's not possible. It doesn't happen. In the books, it's made very clear that there's no way to defend against Avada Kedavra. And the only exception to this is Harry, when his wand gets connected with Voldemort's in Goblet of Fire, because the wands are twins. And then in the final battle, when the Elder Wand refuses to attack its master, who was Harry?
So those are two extremely unusual cases. But in the movie, it's like a big carnival, everyone going pew pew pew, defending against Avada Kedavra. That's not allowed.
Harry's father was a seeker, so that's why he would do really well, since the talent for being a seeker was in his blood. Wrong.
Harry's father was a chaser. James Potter played as a chaser, not as a seeker.
He used to walk around with a golden snitch to show off, but he stole that golden snitch. When he was at school, he stole it from the school's sports equipment.
It wasn't a snitch he had caught during a match. No, because he played as a chaser. Neville Longbottom had a crush. He was in love with Luna Lovegood.
Yeah, everyone thinks that's real because he says it, right? You saw Luna, I'm crazy about her. But man, that's a complete invention from the movies.
Neville never had a crush on Luna, never had anything, not even a hint. Nothing. That's just something the movie made up. So people are surprised to learn that Neville, when he left Hogwarts, married Hannah Abbott, who was a Hufflepuff student.
She was in the same year as them, right? He married her. And then everyone asks, what about Luna? Well, that never happened. Neville's parents died in the First Wizarding War.
A lot of people believe that, really a lot, because the movies leave completely open what happened to Neville's parents. There's a moment when Sirius says they had a fate worse than death, if you want to know, but he doesn't say anything else about them, so most people assume they died. Really, people end up not even paying attention to that line and just think that Neville's parents died. But no, they were tortured and suffered irreversible damage and to this day live in a hospital, in the psychiatric ward. There.
For those who suffered permanent memory damage, spells become interconnected during duels.
Ah, that's something that, wow, doesn't happen. There, Dumbledore and Voldemort at the Ministry. Come on, interconnected spells. That doesn't make sense. That's a unique characteristic of a phenomenon called priori incantatum, which is when two twin wands attack each other, and they become interconnected, which is what happens with Harry and Voldemort. The spells don't just become interconnected. Clashing like that in regular duels, no.
Barty Crouch Jr., what happened to him? He went back to Azkaban, right? Barty Crouch Jr. went back to Azkaban?
Well, at least that's what people who only watched the movies and didn't go deeper into the story think, who didn't read the books, didn't look for the real details of what happened in the story, because that's what it looks like in the movie. Send an owl to Azkaban. They'll notice that a prisoner is missing, so most people think like, oh, he went back to Azkaban, he's there, he was arrested again. But no, he wasn't. He was simply attacked by Dementors and suffered the Dementor's kiss, becoming just an empty shell, with nothing, without a soul. Shu-Ching is a snitch and ratted out Dumbledore's army to Umbridge because she was afraid her mother would lose her job. That's completely wrong. It's not just a little off, because in the movie, they portrayed Shu-Ching as a snitch there because she took the truth serum and confessed, but the one who actually exposed Dumbledore's army was a student named Marietta Edgecombe, who is a friend of Shu-Ching. And then she snitched of her own free will. It wasn't under the effect of Veritaserum, no. And then her whole face was marked with the word snitch because Hermione put a spell on her.
On the parchment they signed, they made a commitment, and since she broke that commitment, she ended up with that word on her face, formed by very painful boils and pustules. Beauxbatons is a school just for girls. That's right, in Goblet of Fire, the schools arrive for the Triwizard Tournament, and Beauxbatons only has young ladies, only girls, only beautiful young women.
But that's completely wrong. Beauxbatons is a co-ed school.
Which brings us to another thing the movies made you misunderstand, that Durmstrang is a school only for boys, just for lads, just for young men. No. Durmstrang is a co-ed school, also.
Igor Karkaroff turned in Barty Crouch Jr. during a trial, and as soon as they found out he was a Death Eater, the movie really makes us believe that. but it doesn't actually happen. Well, at least we don't see it. How did the Ministry of Magic find out that Barty Crouch Jr. was involved in the torture of Frank and Alice Longbottom? And it wasn't Karkaroff who turned him in, because otherwise we would have seen that in the trial. In the book, when Karkaroff is giving up names, he earns his release when he turns in Augustus Rookwood, who worked in the Department of Mysteries and passed information to Voldemort. Hagrid is forced to send Norbert the dragon away after Draco tells everyone that he had a dragon and was taking care of a baby dragon. In the movie, everyone knows about the dragon, right? Everyone found out about the dragon. Filch even says, "Oh, don't be so sad," right? You're going to enter the forest, control yourself. And then Hagrid says, "Oh, he's just a baby. I had to send him to Romania. What if the other dragons don't like him?" None of that. None of that. The dragon is taken by Carlinhos' friends because Harry, Ron, and Hermione interfere. And to keep Hagrid out of any trouble with that dragon, they do this.
No one finds out about the dragon. I mean, Draco knew. And then he ends up trying to set a trap for Harry. But no one believes the dragon story because the dragon was really gone. They are punished more for being out of bed, past curfew.
The Dursleys just go crazy and head to a shack in the middle of nowhere. That's when Harry's letters start arriving. Man, that's just crazy. And it doesn't happen like that. It's not like they just go to a shack out of nowhere.
When the letters start arriving, they keep moving around, moving around, moving around. They stay at a hotel, and after they check in, the letter arrives at the hotel too. Then they move around even more. And then, only after they go to the shack in the movie, the letters just arrive and they, look, go off to that shack in the middle of the sea. And it doesn't even show how they got there. Harry goes to Hogwarts on the same day that Hagrid rescues him from that shack. That's another thing the movies make us understand. Wrong, man. Harry is taken by Hagrid to buy his school supplies. On July 31st, which is his birthday, that's when he's there making the cake on the floor when Hagrid arrives.
And then, the next day, he's there buying the supplies. And after buying the supplies, Hagrid takes him to King's Cross, and he goes to platform 9 3/4.
But classes only start on September 1st. There was still a month in between. The movie skips the part where Harry goes back to the Dursleys' house and waits there for that month. But the way they did it, it really seems like Harry goes on the same day. What was he supposed to do at Hogwarts a month before classes started?
If you catch the golden snitch, the team wins the wrong game. And this one, a lot of people get confused because Olivia Wood in the movie says, if you catch this ball, the game ends. If you catch it, Potter, we win. No, if you catch it, you get 150 points, you don't win.
Winning is relative. If the other team has more than 150 points, if you have 0 points and you catch the snitch, you will still lose. That's exactly what happens in the 1994 World Cup when Crumb catches the golden snitch and Ireland was winning.
They were winning 160-0. Then it becomes 160-150.
He ends the match because he sees they were about to take another beating, and he wants to finish with dignity. He catches the snitch for that. The part of Voldemort's soul inside Harry should have been destroyed when the basilisk attacked him in the Chamber of Secrets. That's what the movie makes a lot of people think. But for Voldemort's soul fragment to be destroyed inside Harry, he needed to die.
He survived because the Phoenix healed him instantly. So, the piece of Voldemort's soul wasn't destroyed.
It's very simple. The Grim, as a supernatural omen of death, really exists. That's what Prisoner of Azkaban leads us to believe, because Harry first sees the dog there when he's about to catch the night bus, and he ends up calling the night bus by accident. Later, Harry sees the Grim in the clouds, and then he's attacked by the Dementors and falls. But this thing about seeing the Grim in the clouds doesn't actually happen. However, the movie endorses it as something supernatural when it actually wasn't supernatural. Harry saw Sirius transformed into a dog, but that wasn't a bad omen. It was just Sirius near him, that's all.
And it's at that moment when he sees Sirius, during the Quidditch match, right when he's playing against Hufflepuff, that he sees Sirius?
Believing it was a Grim in the stands, in an empty part of the stands, there, in the form of a dog, because he was just there watching Harry play Quidditch.
Now, putting it in the clouds like that really made it look supernatural, but there's nothing about the Grim supernatural stuff or being a death omen. That's just a big superstition.
Hermione Granger erased her parents' memories. This one, everyone thinks that's what happened, because the movie literally makes you understand that that's what it was.
In fact, in the movie, Hermione uses Obliviate, which is a spell that can't be undone. But actually, Hermione doesn't erase her parents' memories.
She alters her parents' memories, making them believe they were people who didn't have a daughter and that they wanted to move to Australia. And that's what they do. But she alters their memories. She doesn't erase their memories. But after the war, when everything is fine, she looks for them, finds both of them, and reverses the spell, giving them their memories back. Their original memories back.
The Hufflepuff Seeker was struck by lightning during the third-year match when Harry was attacked by the Dementors. That doesn't happen. First of all, that guy is Cedric. You know that, right?
That guy is Cedric, or at least he was supposed to be. But the movie just doesn't care and doesn't make him Cedric. But this guy is Cedric, who was the Hufflepuff Seeker, team captain, and Hufflepuff prefect. They just have the guy get struck by lightning and fall, and who knows what happened to him.
But in reality, Cedric catches the golden snitch in the book, and he feels extremely upset because when he catches the golden snitch,
he doesn't realize that Harry had been attacked by Dementors and had fallen off his broom, so he asks for the match to be cancelled, but they don't cancel it. People say, no, it was fair. You caught the snitch. It's over. Hufflepuff won.
But he doesn't brag about this victory, and he wanted them to have a rematch, precisely because he didn't see Harry falling and was there alone to catch the golden snitch.
Harry Potter is forced to compete in the Triwizard Tournament because the Goblet of Fire is a magical contractual act.
The movie makes us understand this, but when we find out the plot at the end, the book also does it at the beginning. But when we find out the plot at the end, we understand that. Barto Crouch Sr. was under the Imperius Curse, so he says that Harry would have to compete, that there was no other way, because it was Voldemort speaking. Voldemort, right? Wormtail in this case, following Voldemort's orders, speaking through Barto Crouch Sr., who was just a puppet there, under the Imperius Curse. Basically, it's clear they'd insist Harry had to compete, because the plan was to get him to Voldemort via the tournament. So, if the situation were normal, if he wasn't under the Imperius Curse, Harry didn't sign up for the tournament, they put his name in. The Ministry of Magic could stop Harry from participating. They could change things. They're the Ministry of Magic, man. Voldemort and Harry feel the Horcruxes being destroyed. That was nonsense they put in the last movie. When the Horcruxes are destroyed, Voldemort feels it. Harry feels it too. But that's not what happens. Because otherwise, earlier, it should have shown Harry feeling the Horcruxes being destroyed. When he destroys the diary, or when Dumbledore destroys the ring, none of that happens. Voldemort doesn't feel the Horcruxes being destroyed. Besides, when he finds out that the Hufflepuff Cup was stolen from the Lestrange Vault, he simply goes to the places where the Horcruxes would be hidden to check if everything is okay. And then, as he checks and sees that they aren't there, that's when he understands. Look, they've discovered my secrets. In other words, he didn't even know the Horcruxes had been destroyed until that moment, so he doesn't feel it. Were the Deathly Hallows really given by death? No, that didn't happen. That's just a fairy tale for wizards. They weren't literally made or literally given by the personified figure of death, especially because that personified figure of death doesn't actually exist. It's just a story, just an allegory. The three brothers, who are the Peverils and inspired the brothers in the tale, were the ones who created these Hallows. And throughout their history, according to the tale, they became associated with death. Voldemort wanted to steal the Philosopher's Stone to become immortal. Wrong. He had already made Horcruxes. He was already prevented from dying anyway, because his Horcruxes already existed. They were there, doing their job.
He wanted the stone to recover his body and regain his power.
Severus Snape hit the Death Eaters, Alecto and Amico Caro, when he was fighting with Minerva McGonagall to protect everyone there at Hogwarts.
That's also what the movie makes us understand, but in the book it happens in a very different way.
The one who attacks those Death Eaters is Harry inside the Ravenclaw common room, not Snape.
But that was a cool way they used in the movie to try to give a hint that Snape was on their side the whole time.
Death Eaters fly. This one here, the movie makes everyone believe that Death Eaters can fly. That flying is the most common thing. Flying without a broom, without anything, is the most normal thing in the world. But no, only Voldemort is able to do that. And Snape, who learned from Voldemort. But the Death Eaters don't fly with that black smoke. No. That, of course, is a visual effect they used in the movie. It's cool, but it makes people think that's something super common when it's not. Dumbledore hired Gilderoy Lockhart without knowing he was a fraud, without knowing he was a big imposter.
that's not true either. Dumbledore hired Lockhart precisely because he knew he was an imposter and wanted him to reveal himself there. And that's exactly what happened.
He himself was put to the test in a teaching environment where he couldn't teach anything.
And also, Dumbledore says that bad examples also serve as lessons so that people don't follow them. Harry Potter can do magic while studying at home. He can't do it randomly, but while studying, he can. That's what it seems like at the beginning of Prisoner of Azkaban, where Karen just thought like,
It would be really cool to have Harry do a Lumos Maxima here at the beginning of the movie.
Karen, you're not allowed to do magic outside school. It's in the book. In the last movie, the boy got a warning from the ministry for doing that.
I don't care, just have him do magic.
That's pretty much how it happened. No, you can't do magic. That's a mistake. It's wrong. That doesn't exist.
In the book, Sirius Black was killed by Bellatrix Lestrange's Avada Kedavra. Oh, but he wasn't, my friends. Oh, but that's not what happened. Did the movie make you think that? Very wrong. Very wrong.
Because Sirius is thrown beyond the veil in the Department of Mysteries by a red jet spell that Bellatrix casts at him.
That red jet hits him right in the chest and he falls backward. When he falls back and passes through the veil, that's when he dies, because the veil is a one-way portal to the world of the dead.
He isn't killed with the Avada Kedavra. In fact, back when the books were being published, there was a big theory that Sirius was still alive because he could somehow return from that portal. And last but not least, this one makes everyone think that, oh my god, the world was completely useless and didn't care about what was happening at Hogwarts. Because in the final battle, Voldemort shows up with an army, looking like that movie 300 where they fight against, I don't know how many thousands, with only 300 men. That's not what happens, okay guys? There are a lot of Voldemort's followers, a lot of people attacking Hogwarts, but it's not like that. In the book, the number is much smaller, like infinitely fewer Death Eaters there, you know? It probably doesn't go over 100, you know? It's a really small thing, you know? So much so that at Hogwarts about 50 students die. Besides, like Lupin, besides those more well-known characters, about 50 students die. There were about as many Death Eaters, giants. There were a few. It wasn't that crowd, that huge army you see there. No, that doesn't exist, man. But tell me, was there anything on this list that you misunderstood because you had only watched the movies? Tell me, I want to know.
And did you miss anything on this list that you misunderstood at some point and only later realized it wasn't quite like that? I want to know that too.
And if you want a part 2 of this video here, because there are a lot of things that the movies made people misunderstand, also comment here what you missed seeing. I'll see you in the next Leaky Cauldron episode. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, comment, or support us through the thanks button or by becoming a member. See you in the next video. Mischief managed.